Imagine Egypt, the land of pyramids and pharaohs, basking in its own eternal glory. For 1,000 years, it stood as a beacon of power, culture, and divine rule. But in the 17th century BC, a shadow fell across the sun-scorched Nile Delta. A thunder from the east shattered eternity's dream. This was the dawn of the Second Intermediate Period, a time of division and chaos, and the beginning of an invasion that would change Egypt forever. These invaders were a mysterious people the Egyptians called the Hyksos, meaning rulers of foreign lands. They were not a conquering army in the traditional sense, at least not at first. For decades, Semitic-speaking peoples from the Levant, likely Canaanites, had been migrating into the eastern Nile Delta, settling, trading, and integrating into Egyptian society. But as the central authority of the pharaohs in far-off Thebes weakened, these communities grew in power and influence. They saw an opportunity, not just to live in Egypt, but to rule it. Around 1650 BC, the Hyksos consolidated their power, establishing their own dynasty and making the city of Avaris their capital. They didn't storm the gates with a massive, unified army from abroad. Instead, they rose from within, seizing control of Lower Egypt, the kingdom's northern heartland. The once mighty Egyptian kingdom was fractured. Native Egyptian pharaohs still ruled in the south from Thebes, but they were forced to pay tribute to these foreign kings, a humiliation that stung the pride of a civilization that saw itself as the center of the world. So, who were these Hyksos? They weren't a single ethnic group, but a coalition of peoples from the Near East. They brought with them revolutionary technologies that gave them a decisive edge. The most significant of these was the horse-drawn chariot. Before the Hyksos, Egyptians fought on foot. Suddenly, they faced mobile fighting platforms, swift and deadly, that could shatter their infantry lines. The chariot was the tank of the ancient world. A terrifying weapon that combined speed, mobility, and firepower. The Hyksos also introduced the composite bow, a marvel of engineering made from layers of wood, horn, and sinew. It was far more powerful and had a longer range than the simple bows used by the Egyptians. They brought new types of bronze swords and daggers. Like the curved sickle sword known as the khopesh, which became an iconic weapon of the new kingdom. They even improved Egypt's defenses, introducing massive earthen ramparts and fortified city designs, ironically making their own strongholds harder to conquer. For about a century, Egypt was a land divided. In the north, the Hyksos kings ruled. They adopted Egyptian customs, titles, and writing. They worshipped Egyptian gods alongside their own, like the storm god Baal, whom they identified with the Egyptian god Seth. This period wasn't just one of military occupation, it was also an era of intense cultural exchange. Egyptian art, technology, and ideas flowed into the Levant, while Near Eastern influences enriched Egyptian culture. But the Egyptians in the south never accepted foreign rule. The shame of being subjugated by outsiders festered. The Theban pharaohs of the 17th dynasty saw themselves as the rightful rulers of all Egypt, the heirs to a legacy stretching back a millennium and a half. They began to plot their rebellion, to wage a war of liberation to drive the Asiatics from their sacred land. The first attempts were disastrous. The pharaoh Seqenen-Retau launched a campaign against the Hyksos, and the evidence of his struggle is written on his own body. His mummy, discovered in the 19th century, shows horrific head wounds inflicted by a Hyksos battle axe and other weapons. He likely died in battle, a testament to the brutal fighting of the era. His son, Kamose, continued the fight. Inscriptions tell of his frustration, complaining that he was stuck between the Hyksos in the north and the Nubian kingdom of Kush in the south. Kamose led his army down the Nile, capturing towns and territories from the Hyksos. He intercepted a message from the Hyksos king to the ruler of Kush, proposing an alliance to crush Thebes between them. This revealed the precariousness of the Egyptian position. But Kamose's campaign was a success, pushing the Hyksos back towards their capital, Avaris. He laid the groundwork for the final victory, but he too would not live to see it. The task of reunifying Egypt fell to Kamos's younger brother, Ahmose, taking the throne around 1550 BC. Ahmose launched the final, decisive war against the Hyksos. He besieged the heavily fortified city of Avaris for years. It was a long and grueling campaign. We know details from the autobiography of a soldier named Ahmose, son of Abana, who fought in the war. He tells of repeated assaults on the city walls, of capturing prisoners, and of the eventual fall of the Hyksos capital. After Avaris was conquered, the Hyksos were broken. Ahmose pursued them out of Egypt and into the Levant, besieging their last stronghold at Sharuhin in southern Canaan for 3 years. With its fall, the Hyksos threat was extinguished for good. Ahmose returned to Egypt a hero, the unifier of the two lands, the liberator of his people. His victory marked the end of the Second Intermediate Period and the glorious beginning of the New Kingdom, the age of legendary pharaohs like Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramesses the Great. But the Hyksos left a permanent mark on Egypt. The humiliation of their rule forged a new, more aggressive and expansionist mindset. The Egyptians had learned a harsh lesson: to prevent another invasion, they had to control the lands beyond their borders. They adopted the very weapons the Hyksos had used against them. The chariot became the symbol of pharaonic power, the elite arm of a new, professional Egyptian army. Egypt transformed from an isolated kingdom into an imperial power, building an empire that stretched from Nubia to the Euphrates River. The Hyksos invasion was a traumatic but transformative chapter in Egypt's long history. It shattered their sense of invincibility but ultimately spurred them on to their greatest age of power and glory. From the ashes of division and foreign rule, a new, stronger, and more formidable Egypt was born, ready to take its place as the superpower of the ancient world. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the rise and fall of ancient empires, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see covered. See you next time.